What are the top running shoes of 2024? I'm glad you asked. Let's break it down. What's up, everybody? I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Pod TV, where we review running shoes. Now today we are going to be breaking down my top picks for best running shoes of 2024 in 7 different categories. A couple of disclaimers and disclosures before we dive into any details on this video though. One is that many of the shoes that you will see today were provided to me free of charge for the purpose of review, though I was not paid to make any reviews or any content about any of the shoes that you will see today. No one is paying me to include these shoes in today's video, and no one gets to watch these videos beforehand. All thoughts are entirely my own. Now, every running shoe reviewer does this end of the year recap a little bit differently, so I'm going to choose, like I said, 7 categories to pick my top 2 shoes from. Now, if you want a little bit more detail on how I personally categorize shoes, I'll actually link the video at the end of this one where I break down the 7 categories that I typically use and why I split shoes into those categories. And it should always go without saying, but I'm going to say it for the purpose of this video. This is my opinion. So these are my top shoes. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to enjoy each of these shoes equally or as much as I did. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, you may also notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various categories throughout the video, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full video when you get a chance, as I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and leave a comment. Let me know what I can be doing better in my videos so that I can constantly improve for each and every one of you. Now with that out of the way, let's break down the 7 categories real quick, and then we'll get into the top shoes. For the most part, I break shoes into 2 major categories, and then from there they have their subcategories. The 2 major categories are going to be standard daily use, and then you have your up-tempo use or speed use. Within the standard daily use, we have your standard daily trainer as well as your max cushion daily trainers. Then on the other side, we have 5 subcategories, which are lightweight up-tempo trainer, plated lightweight trainer, max cushion up-tempo trainer, plated max cushion trainer, and super shoes or race day shoes. As such, that's how I'm going to handle this video, and I'm just going to share my top 2 options. Some categories may have some runner-ups or honorable mentions, but for the most part, you're getting 1 and 2. All right, right off the bat, let's start with your standard daily trainers. Now we're gonna start out hot with an honorable mention in this category, and that honorable mention is going to be the Mizuno Neo Z. I just wrapped up mileage in this shoe today, and honestly, this would be my number 2 overall shoe of 2024 if it was considered a 2024 release. After speaking to my rep over at Mizuno, they said that this was actually considered a 2025 release, and they just did the mystery colorway in 2024. So with the official first colorway launching in January, this will likely be my top standard daily trainer of the year in 2025, but it's going to get the honorable mention here in 2024. And again, this would be my number 2 overall shoe of 2024 if it was considered a release for this year. Now coming in at number 2, this is probably going to be a surprise to a lot of people, but it is the Reebok Floatzig 1. This shoe looks pretty gimmicky, I'm not gonna lie. Those of you who were around when they invented Floatzig, or you remember like the John Wall 1s, are going to have some deja vu or just kind of a flashback here with that geometry in the midsole. And even if the geometry is maybe gimmicky, this shoe was so much fun to run in. Traditional standard daily trainers to me have just kind of become boring for the most part. So I was looking for something to give a little bit of bounce. I was looking for something to give a little bit of more fun back in that daily structure. And that's what the Floatzig 1 did really, really well. And on top of that, I just loved the overall aesthetic of the shoe. Has very much 90s vibes, and I love the bright colors. These are really dirty because I actually wore them casually on top of my 50 or so miles that I put on them as well. Coming in at number 1 in the standard daily trainer category, we have the ASICS NovaBlast 5. The NovaBlast kind of sits in an awkward stage for most annual recaps just because it does get released in December of every year, but it still manages to get on the top list for many running reviewers. And there's a reason for that. Frankly, it's a phenomenal shoe. It really strikes the balance between kind of being able to go easy while being able to go a little bit faster if needed. It's not really a lightweight up-tempo trainer though, and that's why it's sitting in this standard daily training category where sure, you could take it up-tempo a little bit more, but it's not going to be quite as responsive as some of the other options in that lightweight category that we'll talk about today. And the weight itself doesn't really put it in that lightweight category. So I was tempted to move it over to the lightweight up-tempo trainer category, but it's not a super critical foam either. It is just FF-Blast Max, which is a huge upgrade for this over the 4, but the NovaBlast 5 is my #1 standard daily of the year. Moving on to the max cushion category, again, this is standard daily max cushion, and this might be one of my least favorite categories of shoe, if I'm being completely honest with you. So this category was rough for me because I like something that is light on foot, I like something that is not overly plush, I like something with some pop. But these two that I chose for this category really did stand out among the rest for me. Now at number 2, I have the Saucony Triumph 22, and I actually think this is going to be a really unpopular opinion, if I'm being honest, because I feel like this shoe got a lot of hate in reviews. Now frankly, I understand why. The Saucony Triumph 21 was my Max Cushion Daily Trainer of the Year last year, and it's a completely different shoe. To that end though, if you look at the shoe as an independent Max Cushion shoe, I think it performs really well. You get a slightly more responsive foam with Power Run PB in the midsole, and then you have just your plush upper overall. I feel like the fit isn't quite as dialed in as the 21, and the shoe is not as nimble as the 21. But again, the 21 was kind of a max cushion shoe that didn't feel like a max cushion shoe. So if we're staying true to kind of the max cushion feel, that's why I feel like the Triumph 22 kind of fits in that category. Now, I also feel like this shoe doesn't feel quite as heavy because it has a slightly more responsive foam, and so because of that, it got number 2 on my list. Now my number 1 in this category is the Brooks Ghost Max 2. The Ghost Max 2, in my opinion, was a little bit of a downgrade in the foam compared to the 1. The 1 was a little bit more responsive, a little bit firmer. Meanwhile, the foam got a little bit softer in the 2, but the overall fit and lockdown of the Ghost Max 2 felt a lot more accommodating for me, where the 1 felt a little bit blocky. The Ghost Max 2 is the shoe that I would go to when I really actually want to run easy and don't want to feel like I'm going to speed up or have the urge to speed up. I think it really kind of checked those boxes, and it's a very comfortable shoe overall. It's also a shoe that I would probably pick if I was just going to be walking around a lot. DNA Loft Nitrogen Injected is not the softest foam on the market, but I don't want the softest foam on the market underfoot for my max cushion shoes. But again, that's just my personal preference. So that concludes the standard daily training portion of this video. And you may be a little bit confused, kind of saying, well, what about like the Rebel V4, Eric? You absolutely love that shoe. You raved about that shoe in 2024. And I absolutely do love that shoe. That's actually going to come in here in the next category, which is the lightweight daily trainer category. Some reviewers like to mix the standard daily trainer and the lightweight daily trainer category, but I think that there's a few key differences here. One is going to be the overall weight of the shoes. Lightweight daily trainers or lightweight up-tempo trainers, it's in the name, are meant to be a little bit lighter on foot. And this is where I feel like the traditional race flat kind of went to die with the invention of the super shoe or the plated trainer. This is actually my favorite category of shoe. It tends to be very affordable, and the foams that are used in these types of shoes tend to be super critical and super responsive. So my number 2 pick for the lightweight daily trainer category is the Rebel V4. Now the Rebel V4 I thought was going to be a top 2 shoe of the year, maybe even top 1 shoe of the year for me. I absolutely love this shoe, but it was not without flaws. The fit of the shoe is a little bit awkward. It's hard to get some lockdown in it. It's a little bit wide, and then it is a little bit short, so you can't really size down. But overall, I can't get over how amazing the foam underfoot feels. The midsole is an EVA and PIBA blend, which again, I think that it turned out really, really good. I actually like this foam more than the blend that is in the SC Trainer or SC Elite. So overall, this is a super fun shoe, and I think a lot of people could be racing in this shoe for shorter race distances. And I think that the lightweight trainer category, again, is where traditional race flats went to die. A lot of these shoes could be used for speed work, for intervals, things along those lines. But the Rebel V4 ended up as my number 2 pick because last minute it basically got dethroned by the Brooks Hyperion 2. Now, where the Rebel lacked a little bit, the Hyperion kind of shines. So one, the upper feels very structured yet minimal at the same time. You get phenomenal lockdown. It has a really, really nice lace system. You have a semi-gusseted tongue. On top of that, it's going to be a lot more stable. The difference is this shoe is going to run a little bit narrow, and the foam underfoot is going to be a little bit firmer. I found though that that firm foam gave really nice ground feel and really nice pop off the ground, and this shoe just felt super, super light on foot overall. I do wonder if the Rebel V4 had a little bit more of a dialed upper and better fit, if it would have dethroned the Hyperion 2, but I was really, really pleased with what I got out of the Brooks Hyperion 2. As such, it takes the number 1 lightweight Uptempo trainer or daily trainer spot. Now moving on to the lightweight plated trainer category, this is where things start to get a little bit confusing, as stack height doesn't really dictate where something lands anymore, in my opinion. This is a really competitive category, so I am going to give an honorable mention to the Puma Deviate Nitro 3. This shoe has a lot of pop, it's very aggressive, and I will say I think it's one of the more race-ready, if not the most race-ready plated trainer on the market. For me, the shoe was almost a little bit too aggressive. The foam was a little bit too firm for my personal taste, but the shoe was very, very fast, and I really enjoy doing intervals in it. The other thing that kind of knocked it down a few notches for me is that it is a 10mm heel-to-toe drop. I prefer 8 and below, or between usually like 4 to 8 for me. My number 2 in this category is a little bit lesser known of a brand, at least in the running space, and it is the Tier Valkyrie Speedworks. Tier is more of a triathlon as well as CrossFit brand, but they put out a couple of really, really good running shoes in 2024 that kind of flew under the radar just because they didn't have the presence in the running market. The Valkyrie Speedworks is probably one of the bounciest, so not necessarily the snappiest, not necessarily the fastest, but one of the bounciest trainers on the market. And running in this shoe, you do feel very, very fast. However, you get lots of cushion, and it comes in a nice and sleek package that has really, really great lockdown, really nice speed, and really nice comfort overall. For those who are curious about this shoe, it reminds me a lot of the Saucony Endorphin Pro 2. So that kind of bouncy, a little bit unstable foam, but that beaded PIBA foam, they have that same beaded PIBA underfoot here. Very, very bouncy, very, very responsive, and it's just a really fun shoe overall. This is another shoe I think you could definitely race at least shorter races in, and those with really, really good durability and strong lower leg muscles could probably race a marathon in this one with the amount of cushion underfoot. Moving on to my number 1 lightweight plated trainer, we have the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. To me, this was the ultimate like do-it-all shoe. I could do intervals in the shoe, I could run easy if I really, really wanted to. I could go long. I did a lot of marathon miles in this shoe. It really just checked all of the boxes for me and gave me a little bit more stable option than maybe its predecessors. I know for some people that really ruined the shoe for them. They didn't like how stable it was. They missed kind of the crazy bounciness of the Endorphin Pro 1 or Endorphin Speed 1 or 2. But for me, this was the perfectly balanced plated trainer. And this shoe is going to come in near the top of my top overall shoes that we'll address at the end of the video. This is one of those plated trainers that I do actually think I could race a marathon in. It's very, very close to the Endorphin Pro 4, which was one of my favorites in the super shoe category. All right, next up we have our max cushion Uptempo trainers, or our cushioned Uptempo trainers. So this is just going to be your higher stack or higher cushion or a little bit heavier overall non-plated trainers that you can find. Typically these are going to be catered more towards like your long runs, your marathon long runs. At number 2 we have the Topo Spectre 2. The Topo Spectre 2 came out of nowhere for me and really, really surprised me as one of the best do-it-all shoes on the market this year. And honestly, I do think that the non-plated max cushion like Uptempo category is going to be your go-to for that do-it-all, because the lack of a plate allows the shoes to be a lot more versatile and even be used for daily miles, like easy runs if you really wanted to. The shoe has a really accommodating fit in the toe box, as is typical with Topo. It has really good lockdown in the midfoot, and you have a nice stack of P-backs foam underfoot, so you're going to get that nice responsiveness, that nice cushion, and ultimate comfort on foot for all day running. If I had to do a road ultra, this might be the shoe I would go to just because of the overall fit, yet it still has some really good responsiveness. The only place that this shoe maybe doesn't shine, I think, is in those shorter like interval style speed workouts, or shorter intervals specifically, not interval in general. But the shoe's very, very versatile. It's one of those shoes that I took on vacation because I could do a number of different workouts in them, and overall very, very pleased and impressed with the Spectre 2. Now my number 1 in this category should come at no surprise if you watch my videos, but it is the Asics Superblast. The Superblast 2 is the ultimate package for me. It has a nice, really, really responsive foam, a ton of cushion underfoot. The upper is locked in, yet breathable. The shoe is actually surprisingly lightweight for the stack underfoot. And so overall, I felt like this shoe really, really crushed it and checked the boxes, where you could do everything except for, again, maybe those short, fast intervals, but tempo runs, threshold runs, long runs, marathon workouts, even daily like standard runs or easy runs were all very much doable in this shoe. This is my number 1 shoe in the max cushion Uptempo category, as well as just overall. Now moving on to the max cushion plated category, this was somewhat of an awkward category for me, and I honestly just was not super impressed with a lot of the releases in this space. My number 2 is a little bit of a tweener, but knowing where Brooks is taking the shoe, it is in their minds the max cushion version, or the max cushion plated shoe, max cushion super trainer. So we have the Brooks Hyperion 2. Now the Brooks Hyperion 2 scores pretty high for me just because it is very, very versatile, and it is a little bit of a tweener. It's not quite the max cushion underfoot that maybe a lot of shoes in this category have, but because of that, plus the slightly firmer foam, the shoe can go fast on shorter intervals and has a good amount of snap. Now ironically, I think where these shoes are supposed to shine is more in the long run and the long run workouts, and that's where I thought the shoe did really, really well, but past about 12-13 miles for me, this shoe did feel a little bit harsh on the feet just because it was a little bit firmer for that distance for me. But overall, I really like the shoe, and the versatility of it overall really shined. The other thing is I love the upper. The upper in the Brooks Hyperion Max 2 as well as the Hyperion 2 are almost identical, and I just really love how they have this structured heel counter. They have a really nice lace system, really good lockdown in the midfoot, and it's just a comfortable and breathable upper overall. While not having to be kind of a race dialed in upper like a lot of other brands try and do on a lot of their super trainers, I think keeping it simple sometimes allows the shoe to really, really shine and not overcomplicate the fit. Now my number 1 in this category is the New Balance SC Trainer V3. I feel like the SC Trainer 1 was kind of the first shoe to really embrace like the max cushion plated trainer category, and that was one of my favorite shoes when it was first introduced, though very, very heavy on foot, and it did give some people some ankle issues as well with kind of the more booty style upper. I feel like the spirit of the 1 though continued through in the 3, and you have a really just nice overall package in the V3. The foam underfoot is an EVA PIBA blend, and although I like the Rebel V4 version a little bit more, the foam underfoot here is really, really nice and responsive. It a lot of the cushion and the squish, but it gives you a lot of pop and a lot of responsiveness to where, although this shoe is probably not the best shoe for shorter intervals, you can also do shorter interval workouts in the shoe, as well as kind of those longer tempo and threshold workouts and long run workouts, marathon specific workouts. I also feel like this upper is a little bit more dialed than the SC Elite as well as the Rebel V4, even though it is kind of that same phantom fit. I didn't have as many issues with the lockdown, and I felt like although it did feel a little bit short like the other two, it did better overall than the other two with the fit. All right, final category, super shoes. Now these are the shoes that everyone drops the big bucks for. It's the one that everyone wants to talk about. It is your marathon race day shoes. Frankly, most people are using these shoes on the track for the interval workouts as well. Now starting out with an honorable mention in the category, because I'm unsure if this is a 2024 or 2025 release, just with kind of some exclusive colorways, things along those lines. The Adidas Adizero Adios Pro 4. I've only taken this out for 1 workout so far, but I was very, very impressed with the foam underfoot. The shoe is very responsive. It is soft yet stable. It is comfortable. It is fast. This category gets 1 more honorable mention, which is the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro Evo 1. Mainly because I think this was technically a 2023 release, but it was also just kind of an exclusive release that was really, really hard for people to get their hands on and didn't become more widely available until 2024. But because it is a single use or a single race optimized use shoe, I have a hard time ranking it in my official top 2. But I will say that this was my favorite race day shoe. It is the shoe that I actually chose for my marathon in 2024 when I ran Grandma's in June. That's part of why I'm anticipating the Pro 4 to rate very, very highly, because I feel like the Pro 4 is about 80 to 90% of what the Evo 1 is, but it's about half the cost. So, all right, with that out of the way, my number 2 in this category was a big surprise to me, but it is the On Cloud Boom Strike. In my review for the shoe, I talked about how I wasn't a huge fan of a lot of aspects of the shoe. The fit as well as just kind of the underfoot feel were a little bit awkward, but this is one of the shoes that I probably feel the fastest in when compared to like any other shoes on foot. Every single workout that I did in this shoe, I absolutely nailed my paces. In fact, a lot of them, I just blew them out of the water. And I know that the shoe doesn't make that much of a difference, but I felt so good in this shoe that it's hard for me to ignore that. The one thing I will say is it did feel a little bit unstable for me, or a little bit uncomfortable. I felt like my feet were getting squished somewhat just because it's somewhat low volume, and so I would hesitate a little bit to wear this for a marathon, but a half marathon, I think that this definitely would be my go-to for that race. And that's the only reason, frankly, that it's sitting at number 2. And for my number 1, we have the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. The Saucony Endorphin Pro 4, I feel, just does a really, really good job of striking a balance between fast and stable and comfortable. A lot of super shoes I found were just really, really aggressive, and they were really harsh on my lower limbs, and so for the marathon distance, I would be really, really hesitant to wear them. The Endorphin Pro 4, however, was very, very comfortable. I took it on various 20-mile runs. I ran a 10K race in it, and I did just a lot of things in this shoe, and it was going to be my race day shoe until I got my hands on the Evo 1s. This shoe just vibed really, really well with my foot, and I really have nothing to complain about when it comes to the fit, lockdown, performance of the shoe overall. So there you have it. Those are my top picks in the 7 categories. As far as my top 2 overall shoes of the year, I'm going to have to go with the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 as my number 2. I feel like this shoe is just really, really versatile. It checks as many boxes as you possibly can. Usually a shoe that is fast is hard to take long, versus a shoe that's very comfortable for long runs is hard to kind of race down or to do intervals in. And I feel like this shoe checks a lot of those boxes and is just really versatile overall. One of the best do-it-all shoes on the market. The only thing it can't do is kind of standard daily runs. Which leads me to my number 1, which I already said is the Asics Superblast 2, because it kind of just fills the space for everything else. This shoe can be used for recovery, it can be used for threshold, tempo, long run, marathon workouts, easy days, whatever you want to do in this shoe you can. And frankly, you probably could do some interval workouts in the shoe as well. I think these shoes make a really, really good 2-shoe rotation. Overall, I was really happy with both of these on my feet. So these are going to be my top 2 shoes of the year. So to recap, Asics NovaBlast 5, Standard Daily Trainer of the Year. Ghost Max 2, Max Cushion Trainer of the Year. Hyperion 2, Lightweight Trainer of the Year. Endorphin Speed 4, Lightweight Plated Trainer of the Year. Superblast 2, Max Cushion Uptempo Trainer of the Year and Overall Shoe of the Year. New Balance SE Trainer V3, Max Cushion Plated Trainer of the Year, and Saucony Endorphin Pro 4, Super Shoe of the Year. So there you have it. Those are my shoes of the year. If you watched this far, I sure appreciate you. If you haven't already, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment. Let me know what I could be doing better in these videos to make them more enjoyable for each and every one of you. And as always, I'll leave you with a question, which is, what are your picks in the 7 categories? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks, everybody.